Good morning, mamas. I'm so glad to be in the studio this morning with Lindsey Wachsmann of Willow Photography, and we are going to talk all things birth photography post-COVID and what that looks like. We're also going to chat about some services that Lindsey has available for moms and share that with you. So stay tuned. I know you're going to enjoy this. Just welcome, Lindsey.
Thanks.
Hi, glad you're here.
Thanks. This is fun.
Okay, so normally, one thing I do not do too many of are birth sessions. So if I've done a few, but normally I refer those to you. So tell us, Lindsey, kind of catch us up on where we are with COVID and birth photography.
Gosh, it's just been so different. It's been so different. A lot of, before COVID, prior to COVID, you could have, depending on your provider, it really just depended on you. You were the boss, basically. You could decide who was in your delivery room. You could decide who, all of the things. You didn't have anything kind of hindering that.
Right.
So since COVID now, and of course, your safety, baby safety is number one. But as far as support people, that has been completely taken off the table. So a lot of moms last year just weren't able to have anyone in there. Doulas, midwives, photographers. You maybe could have a second, a support person, but it was very, very, it wasn't common.
Right.
Unless you were at a birth center. So
Right.
in hospitals was completely different than if you were birthing at home or if you were doing, a birth center birth. But protocols now have completely changed too. It's it ebbs and flows, I feel like.
Okay.
So some days you can have a support person, and some days.
Okay, so it's really still up in the air.
So
if as long as you're birthing, which I know because I actually did a birth, post-COVID, post-COVID, but it was at a birth center. And so as long as you're at a birth center or doing a home birth photography is probably on the table. If you're birthing in a hospital right now, it is still such
It's very fickle.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very. It depends on your provider, and it depends on you, because it all depends on what. I guess the current state of what COVID looks like in McLean County.
Right. Okay.
So you can have a birth person in there, you can have a doula and you can have support people in there now, but still sometimes they're making families stay on the opposite side of the window or whatever.
Okay. And then it's also just probably much more limited than because I know when I was talking with Micah that she was saying that doulas were back in the hospitals, but we're still, as birth photographers, that's still kind of a wishy-washy situation and have to wait and see.
Now, if you are a doula and a photographer, then you can get back.
Okay.
So I am certified as a doula. I just don't provide doula services, and so I could. But if you do have a doula who's doing it full time, and that's their realm, I guess, of what they love to do, then you'd probably want to choose them versus I'm just there hey, just to help out a little bit, but not my focus would be photography, not
being a doula,
hip squeezes and all that, all that jazz.
Right. Awesome. Okay, so you mentioned to me also that in your studio, not only, you obviously are a photographer and offer those services, but that you actually have a ultrasound provider.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so Darla, she's with Cactus Rose Imaging. She is awesome. She's been a sonographer for probably around 25 years. And so it's been really cool to see parents and family be able to come in and not be limited on who can come in and see the baby if you're, and she's licensed and she works in the hospital, and so she can go in and do confirmation of heartbeat. She can, for the birth centers, so coming in and seeing your baby and learning about oh, that's the cord, or just the anatomy stuff too is really cool for families and dads to be a part of, because sometimes in the hospitals, I know now it's a little bit lenient or more inviting, but you couldn't have your husband and your mom come, or your husband or whoever, your partner, and another person to come share that experience. So it's been fun having a whole group come in. So.
Yeah, because that's such a fun thing to get to see especially the first time, and to actually see baby in there. Okay, so that's awesome. And then I'll have you throw out just how people can find you. So as far as birth photography goes, do you think is it just someone needs to contact you and you guys will figure out
Yes.
if that's going to be an option.
Yeah, it's totally situational. It's totally provider dependent. So it depends on just kind of what your birth plan looks like and where you're birthing and what hospital and what
Right.
doctor.
Right.
So it's like all these different moving parts that kind of just have to align.
Yeah,
for
different
that
things.
to-
That, I mean, just like everything, we're having to consider things
Right.
so differently now.
Absolutely.
Well, I am so glad you came in today. Thanks for coming to have coffee with me.
Absolutely.
And so just throw out real quick how everybody can find you.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So you can find me on Instagram. It's Willow Sage Photo Waco. I should know that on the back of my head, but I think that's
I'll
right.
post it.
But my website is willowsagephoto.com, and then you can also find me on Facebook. So
All right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thanks for coming. Okay, mamas. We'll see you next week.
bye.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us this morning. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel or follow us on Instagram so that you can be sure to not miss any future Monday Mom Minutes. We'll see you next Monday.